Thank you, and I request Jagadbir to introduce the panel and take it forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Naveen. It's indeed a pleasure, privilege, and honor to be part of this discussion with Destination India. And like you said, Naveen, that we are going to discuss this issue of theaterization very broadly so that it reaches out to the normal audience, which includes the politicians, the bureaucrats, as well as the uninformed audience as far as the civilian hierarchy and industry is concerned. That's one aspect, because within the defense services, everybody is well aware of this subject, and they have. So with that in mind, I request you to, all the panelists to keep that as your focus. So it's somebody who's uninformed about the nuances of theaterization and how we're getting about it. So like I said earlier, that we've already shared it with everyone. We're going to discuss it in 3 parts. So the first part will generally be what are India's security challenges and how are we keeping our borders secure at this time, and what exactly is theaterization. And secondly, where do we stand as far as theaterization goes in the Indian context, and seeing what our neighborhood is all about and what are the global examples and how does it best work for us. And the third part are naturally, which is the most concerning, what do you visualize as the challenges which lie ahead. Because ever since CDS came about in 2020, January 2020, we were told the next step of military reforms is going to be the theaterization. But we've been talking for the past 4 years. A lot of you have been involved, a lot of our panelists have been deeply involved in this subject at various levels. So I'm sure we'll learn a lot from that. We are indeed fortunate to have with us a very, very distinguished panelist with us. Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha needs no introduction. He's been CNC of Western Naval Command, and he's got a wide experience in this matter. Lieutenant General P.S. Rajeshwar, who joins us from US, has been both the CISC as well as the SINCAN. He's looked after the Andaman Nicobar Command, which is a joint command. So he has again been part and parcel of seeing to this coming up over the years. We have Major V.K. Singh, who's been previously with Southern Command. So he's also seen, the operations of the 3 services, Army, Navy, Air Force in the Southern Theatre. AVM Hora was the maritime air operations. He was heading along with the Navy in Mumbai. So he'll give his perspective covering both the naval and the air aspects with it. Commodore A.J. Singh has been writing extensively on matters pertaining to the security and particularly on the maritime affairs. He's travelled widely and he's also got his own views on this subject. Lieutenant General P.J.S. Pannu has commanded 14 Corps. He's been very much there when just before the Galwan incident, and thereafter he was in headquarter IDS, and he's also been in MO Directorate. So he's seen, theaterization and the way that war fighting is conducted, both at the apex level and at a theatre level, and he's got his ideas of how exactly we should proceed and whether we should proceed at all in a particular direction or not. And of course, we have Air Marshal Kapoor, who joins us with a wealth of experience. He's from the flying branch of the Air Force, and he will give us the air aspect of it. But before we move forward, sir, we'd like to, can you hear me, sir?
Yeah,
okay.
Now fine.
Okay, now it's okay, sir?
Yeah, now I can hear you, yes.
Oh, sir. So before we move forward, I am of course Major Jagadbir Singh, sir. I have retired in 2018, and after that I am with the USI presently. So I am a distinguished fellow with the USI, which you are all well aware of, is India's oldest think tank, which was established in 1870. Now before we go further, sir, may I request Vice Admiral Shekhar Sinha to please give us what he visualizes is India's threat perception, sir.
Well, thank you, Naveen-ji, Jagadbir and VK for inviting me here. Really nice to see friends who I haven't met for quite some time. As you said, it is meant for an audience which is not what is present here, but those who will listen to this. So let me say this, that the maritime security challenges are many. General security challenges are even bigger. Whereas at sea, unlike the land border, we have no borders, and therefore there are many users of this, this medium. All seafarers or global, as we call it, are free to use it for passage, for trade, for commerce, etc., and also illegal activities, because the rules are quite fluid and it's very difficult to enforce those laws. So that is one issue that we need to remember. On account of freedom of the seas, both the state and non-state actors, we will hear more about it. I think probably even AJ will cover. But at the moment, to my mind, the biggest challenge that we are seeing is the geopolitical contest for supremacy between two big powers in the Indo-Pacific, and particularly coming out in Indian Ocean. As we go along, I will put that across in perspective. China has violated all the provisions of the United Nations Convention on the Laws of the Sea and continues to threaten the world. Apart from Taiwan and Senkaku Island of Japan, the Philippines maritime territory at Scarborough Shoal, Second Thomas Shoal, and recently the one more, which have been violated left, right, and center virtually every day. These, the Chinese arrival in the Indian Ocean has been preceded by economic coercion of all our neighbors, which is a matter of great concern. Why it is concerned? That's because the presence of Chinese ocean research vessels, which are engaged in monitoring hydrological data in the IOR, which are very vital to programming the torpedoes against warships and against submarines. Also, it helps the submarine deployment of the Chinese, and they are here in very frequently. I would say that our neighbors' Sinicization is in progress, and the recently being the what we saw happened in Bangladesh. I have just written an article for the First Post that the geopolitical game in the Bay of Bengal has just begun. So it's not going to be peaceful anymore, because the China's influence on Myanmar and Bangladesh was seen to be increasing. The Americans have now landed up in Bangladesh bandwagon, and they have also allocated money to various insurgent groups officially in Myanmar. Recent one being $75 million to one of the insurgent groups, which is primarily there are Christians. So we are talking about pro-China government, as you know, in Maldives. Nepal is another example. Sri Lanka, they don't know which way they're going, and depending upon what is the election result, if Mr. Dissanayake wins, then let me tell you, he belongs to JVP, which is a Leninist Marxist leaning party, and therefore you're likely to see some more game being played. So I would say that our own island territories, which are they should be better defended, and our assets in the sea and our assets in the southern peninsula are now subject to, shall I say, reconnaissance, identification, and possible interdiction in the times of a great war. So I would say that these are, to my mind, apart from traditional threats and non-traditional threats, those are very. The last thing that I want to add in this is that China-Pakistan nexus, the manner in which it is now panning out in the Indian Ocean, particularly Arabian Sea, we will find that the maneuvering space for the Indian Ocean in the Indian Navy is going to shrink quite a lot. When we operated with full freedom, it's not going to be any more, freedom of movement of ours. Everything will be monitored, and that takes away our ability to strike or give a surprise to the enemy. So I would stop here, because there are many more things to be covered. I haven't talked about land borders, but having served for more than 3 years in IDS headquarters, and also as said, threat perception, threat environment, it is done virtually on every weekly, monthly basis. There's a primary job of IDS headquarters. I can tell you that threats are no less over land. Threats are no less on the borders, where we have to watch out against the infiltration. Bangladesh Jamaat has gained a lot. It is tying up with the BNP, and the Pakistan High Commissioner has been seen making trips to the interim government people, asking for that they can do more. Mr. Nawaz Sharif has gone on record and saying that we will correct the things we did wrong in 1971. So that's a warning. I would say that there is fair amount of challenge in the neighborhood as far as India is concerned, not only maritime, but overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Those were most educative, your remarks, and I'm glad you just focused on our neighborhood and brought out the problem of Bangladesh and China-Pakistan nexus. So it's wonderfully put across. Now may I ask General Pannu, sir, you can give the geostrategic challenges as far as the land border is concerned, so as far as the continental domain is concerned.
Thank you, Jagat. Admiral Sinha, covered it really very well for any person to understand how the threats are shaping up. But for the land borders, our land borders are basically rooted in the historical fault lines, where our borders have not been settled right from day one when we became independent. India has fought 4 wars, and 3 are with Pakistan, primarily on the claims on Kashmir. And 1 war has been fought between India and China, primarily on the claims on Ladakh and also Arunachal Pradesh. The threat perception today hasn't changed. The disputed areas, in spite of fighting 5 wars, have not been settled. So the lines have been drawn, some lines have been changed, but over a period of time, the wars have not guaranteed peace for the simple reason that the map lines still remain the same. And there are lines on which we are fighting really continue to remain more or less the same. 1947-48, we started with Pakistan attacking us with the hope that they will be able to forcefully take Kashmir from us. They have not been successful, and all the other wars with Pakistan on the Western Front, of course, Bangladesh and 71 had Western and Eastern both wars being fought. But at the moment, we will only talk about the border disputes based on which the Pakistan is still looking at correcting certain things which they felt should have been corrected. So therefore, they are on the offensive, not only as far as the military planning is concerned, but also how they are indoctrinating their own population. And therefore, with the land borders, the disputes which we could not settle on the land borders, the disputes have further gone into a different mold altogether, where the internal situation in India has also been affected through proxy war and through trying to break up India. And therefore, proxy war has been one major concern for Indian armed forces, not only in Kashmir, but also it extended even to the northeast and still goes on. So as a result, when you're looking at the future of warfare, while the things have undergone a change as far as the neighborhood is concerned, China is almost a superpower. Pakistan has been supported initially by the Western world against India, and today also supported by China. Well, the Western world, whether it has stopped supporting Pakistan or not, is yet to be seen. So as a result, our land border challenges coming from the adversaries such as Pakistan, China, and also Myanmar, which is a proxy against us, and Bangladesh, which is also being a proxy, but now being a proxy which is being shown in a very different complexion. And our neighborhoods, of course, Admiral Sinha has described, the future wars are still going to be fought on the fault lines, which that we have not been able to settle with anybody so far. When you look at how the Indian forces are going to face these challenges, India has constantly attempted to avoid war. We have largely been on the defensive. If we have any capability for offensive, was basically to deter the adversary not to attack. So that was more of a deterrence, including our nuclear capability is for deterrence, so that we don't get attacked. But largely it comes from a defensive understanding, and this is how our defensive philosophy has been. As a result, the new dimension of internal situation where it is not only the border guarding forces which are doing border policing and are also part and parcel of the armed forces, but also internal security duties where we had to create the NSG, where we had to support the police forces in the left-wing extremism. All that the military has also got sucked into certain areas, and we had to raise special forces to deal with proxy war. I think that has largely given a new twist to how we think of our security, because the Russian rifles came up, the support to the police came up, the NSG as I was talking about. So the paramilitary forces also shaped up in a matter that today we have one of the largest border guarding forces in the world. We have largest armed police forces in the world, which is larger than the Indian Army. So this is where we are, and we collectively as one nation has to face these challenges. Of course, when you talk about theaterization, we will talk about other things.
Thank you, sir. You've covered the whole gambit, and you've touched on an issue of unresolved borders and the fault lines which we haven't got over and which are constantly pinpricks and creating problems. Marshal Kapoor, sir, may I request you for your views on our threat perception as far as the air domain is concerned?
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to hear General Panu and Admiral Sinha. In my opinion, the war begins generally with air campaigns, and with the aeroplanes and associated equipment becoming more expensive by the day, a new platform of fifth generation fighter or a C-17 class of aircraft is costing over 2,000 crores. If you have to make a squadron of at least 12 aircrafts, you need 24,000 crore rupees of an exchequer money to be blocked into a particular squadron. These assets are very difficult to procure. One, it has a gestation period. Two, its operating limitations as vis-a-vis the runway length, the infrastructure required and others is also challenging. The air operations are dependent, especially in the air mobility and other factors which would be important in case of any conflict, on weight, altitude and temperature. And as we are aware, the Chinese area adjacent to India is at a plateau, which is having an elevation of about 10,000 to 12,000 feet. The Chinese have made about 8 to 9 airfields in Tibet area, and they have positioned a large amount of arsenal, equipment and the air assets in these bases. And this was visible during the Galwan crisis, when our satellites picked up a large amount of assembly of these air assets close to Indian border. Pakistan on its part has a depleting air power which is largely confined on their eastern areas. In respect to India, we have grown in a big manner as far as the civil aviation goes. Now this has a direct implication on our military preparedness. Today we have over 40 to 50 joint user airfields where on Indian Air Force airfields the civil traffic is flying. So the air travel is growing at such a fast pace in our country that the airspace available is becoming reduced for our own training and exercises. The air ranges which we had a few years ago are reducing. More and more state governments are reluctant to part with land for the practice of air-to-ground weapons, and also the training areas in various combat and other exercise maneuvering areas have further shrunk. So on one aspect is the growing civil aviation requirement. The other aspect is the high cost of procurement and maintenance. Third is the maximum use of the Chinese technology along the border. The Chinese drones, the Chinese radars, the Chinese air defense have actually moved in along the border from Himachal Pradesh upwards right till Arunachal. They have their sensors, they have the mobile posts at the rear, they have a real-time satellite passes which indicate this thing. So the next war which we have to fight would be probably on technology more with the northern neighbor, and of course we'll expect the conventional war. The next aspect is the air assets which we have are quite old. Quite a few of them are of 70s, 80s and 90s vintage. which are now difficult to maintain and operate. So that will be a challenge, though we are doing in-house manufacturing and upbringing. But these are a few factors, in my opinion, which will be borne in mind, other than the strategic dimension.
No, I think you've covered it beautifully, sir. You've covered everything. And you also talked of the, future challenges as far as drones go. And you talked of the Chinese build-up in Arunachal and in eastern Ladakh. Now,
But I just wanted to
Yeah.
clarify one thing with you made a mention that the Chinese fighter capability, correction, Pakistani fighter capability is going down.
yeah, that's what he said.
But what is actually happening with the induction of JF-17, the J-10C, F-16s are already there. I thought that there was a mismatch between what we have and what they have, and their capability is only growing and not coming down. Could you clarify that point?
See, the numerical numbers may be increasing, but whatever information we have, the serviceability of these aircraft, the training and the deployment of these aeroplanes, they are still continuing to use Mirage 3s and other aircraft which they have of our MiG-21 vintage. Though the numerical figures are increasing of Pakistan because of direct support from China, but when it will come to the actual confrontation, I think so we have an edge.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.